Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the cryptocurrency market today as we are seeing a progressive and consistent sell-off with Bitcoin's price now that we've broken the major support at $34,788 exactly like we talked about yesterday on the 15-minute chart. This was the exact support that opened the door to sell pressure. As you can see with this volume, this is a level that we've had drawn out on our chart for the last 90 days. You guys know our levels are extremely important. And notice how today we formed a candle low for Bitcoin at $31,000, just $1,000 shy of the initial low of 30,000 that we saw when Bitcoin saw the 50% correction. And notice how on the weekly chart, there is a puzzle piece that we're going to talk about today, and that's the 50-week moving average sitting right at that $29,300 level. And when we go into a 4-hour chart where everything starts to morph into the daily chart because it's a smaller time frame and those typically translate into the larger time frames, notice how we go back to January when we saw altcoin season start. And this is exactly where the 50-week moving average is sitting right now at 29,300. And look how much confluence there is at that support level from the past cycle where we saw the initial push to the upside for Bitcoin, where we came down to 29,000, we bottomed out, and then we broke right back into 40,000, eventually seeing the $60,000 level. Is Bitcoin telling us that the $29,000 level is going to be another significant level for Bitcoin? And if that's the case, a lot of people are saying that we could see further downside. I'm even saying that that $24,000 level is on the table now that we've opened the door here at $34,788. However, is the Trick, Trap, and Frustrate crew going to come in and bring Bitcoin's price just shy of the previous low at 30,000 to form a lower low, which would be a potential bullish pattern that could form a double bottom here that could take Bitcoin back above the monthly and weekly open, above 40,000 US dollars, and then from there we can determine the more macro timeframes. But I want to address this scenario because notice here on the 6-hour chart, we know there's a lot of volume here at 30,000, but when you look at on-chain analysis, below 30,000, there is a lack of supply and distribution because when we got to 30,000, we rushed through the $20,000 to $30,000 level, and so there wasn't much volume and supply at this area. And that is also a puzzle piece on the table because if we see hourly and 4-hour candles decisively break below 30,000 and we see a rise in sell pressure, that could open the door to the $24,000 level. But there's still a potential. We just come down to form another lower low before seeing a push to the upside. And we know exactly what happened the last time Bitcoin came down to 29,000 and pushed to the upside. We saw an immense amount of upside for altcoins, and this was the start of altcoin season in January. And so the thesis on our channel, even though you guys have been giving me a ton of slack, not all of you snipers, but some of you have been saying, well, altcoin season is over, Naeem. Others' dominance, it's over. Guess what? What happened today with others' dominance? We just jumped back above the 50-day moving average. That sure as hell looks a lot better than Bitcoin dominance way below the 50-day moving average. And why did I stick to my thesis? Even though we saw this bullish engulfing and we saw Bitcoin dominance temporarily push to the upside in May, I still said, I still believe we're in altcoin season because guess what? I stick to the fundamentals. Price action, market structure, overall trend. I use indicators as confirmation. And here's one of my rules. If we're above the 20-week moving average, that means we're above home base, we're in an uptrend. If we're below the 20-week moving average, then we are below home base and we're in a downtrend. Well, guess what? Bitcoin dominance, way and below home base, others dominance, way and above home base. We are still in altcoin season and we're seeing that translate into the biggest altcoin, Ethereum to Bitcoin chart. Notice here how we saw this push to the downside today, but we are now maintaining the body of this candle above the weekly open, assuming that we're going to see a bullish tail here to see continuation for Ethereum against Bitcoin at the 86,000 Satoshi level. And we're seeing strength on this chart despite Bitcoin selling off. Of course, the Ethereum US dollar price is getting affected. Bitcoin is still the big player in this market, but we're still above this 100-day moving average. Doesn't this chart look very similar to others' dominance? We camped out here, right? Between the 50-day moving average and 100-day moving average before breaking right back above the 50-day. Well, guess what? This happened today. Could we see Ethereum to the US dollar tomorrow break back above this channel at 3,000? If that's the case, we hit 3,500 US dollars. Very similar pattern forming here. Is that going to be the case? Who knows? What if Ethereum doesn't see the amount of liquidity and capital we're seeing in other altcoins? That's a possibility. But in my opinion, altcoins are still in their season, and we have to address that regardless of how much slack I may get. I'm always going to stick to my rules, and I'm going to be the umpire for you, which means I'll stand neutral and give you both sides of the equation. And we have a lot of things to cover today, and then we'll cover the gold to Bitcoin chart coming up, potentially forming a lower high, or it could break out, because this does sort of look like a cup and handle formation. If you were to ask me, that could be a concern for us. We do want to monitor this, and then we'll look at commodities and how the environment outside of Bitcoin is, because US oil is starting to push up to see new highs. That's a positive thing for a limited asset like Bitcoin, because commodities showing strength is a very good thing, with the DXY also giving us exactly what we need, which is calmness, sitting right below the weekly open, not necessarily seeing too much volatility, allowing the S&P 500 to breathe a little bit today above the monthly open. The environment outside of Bitcoin looks really good, but we have a lot of scenarios and things to talk about with Bitcoin, so stay tuned. There's going to be a ton of information in this video. I appreciate each and every one of you guys watching our content snipers. My name is Naeem Al-Baidi. Remember to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let's hit 400 likes on this video. So with Bitcoin, first I want to talk about this potential scenario of the Trick, Trap, and Frustrate crew coming in and knowing that the on-chain metrics and the major levels on everyone's chart is indicating we are going to see a lot of downside, potentially towards the $24,000 level. If we were to even take the schematics of this symmetrical triangle that we're breaking down from, if you're a beginner trader, you would assume that we're going to head down now to that $24,000 area. But keep in mind, the markets rarely do what we think they're going to do. And I want to throw out this potential scenario where we have this yellow line on my chart. And the only reason this yellow line is here is because this is where the 50-week moving average is sitting right now. And this is a moving average. So is it a coincidence, or is this a puzzle piece that this is sitting exactly at 29,300, where in the past we saw the start of altcoin season and we saw this act as a major level of support? We know there's some buy volume here. We go on the 6-hour chart. Look at all of this volume that came in at 30,000 on the dot. So is it going to be the Trick, Trap, and Frustrate crew coming in and taking Bitcoin just slightly below the previous low to make investors panic before bringing the price back to the upside above the $40,000 level, the monthly and weekly open? I think that that's a potential scenario on the plate. So this is what I'm watching. At this point, we've already got the confirmation of the breakdown. You guys know we've been monitoring the $34,788 level for a very long time, and it's not a coincidence that as soon as we got to that price level, we saw the door open for more sell pressure and volume to come in, because that's the door opening and that's the sell pressure coming in. It's why it's this major support or resistance. We also know on the on-chain metrics below 30,000, there's a lack of distribution and supply. So here's what I'm watching. If we start to see confirmation of buyers coming in at the 50-week moving average at 29,300, we start to see buy volume come in. We don't see hourly and 4-hour candles closing bodies below the $29,300 level. I do believe there's a potential that could be a short-term bottom for this potential structural formation that we have. And I don't want to get into the more macro time frame because Bitcoin is in a transitionary phase right now, but the head and shoulder pattern we do have to address. We have a potential head and shoulder pattern, and if we were to look at this with TradingView, notice here how this head and shoulder pattern was the start of altcoin season. And so did Bitcoin run out of fuel, go into altcoin season, form a head, and now you can see TradingView validating this as a head and shoulder potentially. If we come down to test that 50-week moving average, you can see if TradingView highlights the inner triangle, that is a valid pattern showing confluence here with a potential neckline at that 50-week moving average. I don't know. Is that something that could potentially play out? It's on the table. Once again, I maintain the fact that I don't believe we're going to get down to that $20,000 level. I think the worst case scenario is 24,000, but we could just see a short-term push at this 50-week moving average. It would be the first time we're testing it through this bull cycle. Very plausible. And then we could potentially see more downside or upside, but that doesn't matter. What matters is where's the bottom here? Where are we going to bounce? Where the long is going to come in? Where's the volume going to come in? And that is what I'm monitoring. And so for those tuning into the Cyber channels, we'll continue to monitor this. And then, of course, for the upside, we don't want to talk too much about that right now, being the fact that we're already below 34,788. But that right there is the level we need to get above right now. So get us above 35,000. We'll talk about upside scenarios and targets. But I do want to address what's happening to altcoins because remember, there's a potential decoupling effect happening right now. Ethereum right now camping out between the 50-day and 100-period moving average, exactly what others' dominance did before breaking out above the 50-period moving average today. Does that give us a hint or a puzzle piece that we could see strength? The Ethereum to Bitcoin chart looks very healthy, like it wants to continue to the upside. I think there's a potential we could see further upside for Ethereum, and that, regardless of what Bitcoin does, is still on the table. And when we look at the total cryptocurrency market cap chart, this is extremely important. We are at this 200-day moving average. It's the third time we've knocked on this door. Typically, when you knock on a door too many times, it eventually breaks. We want to monitor this total cryptocurrency market cap chart. On the weekly chart, unfortunately, we are fully below the 20-week moving average and home base. But we know there's a lot of support here. The markets rarely do what you expect them to do. So if Bitcoin were to come down to form a lower low, we could still see a lot of volatility between this range. I think that's going to be the case. I don't believe we'll come below 1 trillion. I also don't believe we'll come above 1.75 trillion for a sec, right? I think it will be a couple months maybe. But staying in between this is not a bad thing. That could still show strength for altcoins. Getting above 20-week moving average here around that 1.7 trillion is what we want for a bullish confirmation. And so others' dominance showing strength exactly as we've been talking about. And then I do want to address the elephant in the room. We have the gold and the gold to Bitcoin chart. So gold right now above the weekly open showing strength, starting to climb up this breakdown candle that we saw when we got the unemployment numbers last week and we saw a quick dip in the market. But more importantly, this gold to Bitcoin chart, we want to monitor this. If we break this and this handle starts to play out, we do have a potential confirmation of further upside of gold against Bitcoin. We're starting to see some of the storyline change when it comes to Bloomberg. I just want to throw that on the table. U.S. oil doing well as a commodity, DXY and the S&P 500 doing exactly what we want to see for a healthy environment for Bitcoin. So very interesting stuff on Bitcoin's chart today. I hope you guys learned something. I appreciate each and every one of you tuned into this channel. Remember, this yellow line is not as significant as these major support levels. The fact of the matter is below 30,000, there's very little supply. We want to make sure we can see a quick push to the downside if we get towards that $30,000 level. It looks like it wants to form a lower low at minimum at this point. So we just have to take it for what it is. And that's totally fine. We did that a lot in January before we saw altcoins do very well. We saw continuation with Bitcoin's price. So a lot of stuff on the table. If you want to win one of my favorite books on investing, Principles by Ray Dalio, comment below and share this video. You'll have a chance to win. I'll pick a winner from our video yesterday and our video tomorrow. So there'll be 2 winners. And with that being said, thank you all for tuning into our channel today. Until next time, snipers